honest, if this was a mistake that I made, I don't care. I'm going on the stand and I'm going to tell my story. Why I had the knife? Was I looking to unalive somebody? Or you know what I'm saying? Did I mean to do it? I feel like if he speak out, it'll show more sincerity, whether you get found guilty or not. I'm gonna tell my side though, because they tell you not to say nothing. But when you don't say nothing, it looks like you're even more guiltier. I will get on the stand. I'm going to cry. I'm going to say, look, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to take this boy's life, but I was scared for mine. Like where people can see how sincere you are.
This trial is just a formality at this point. It's basically over for Karmelo. The jury just has to make it official because last week the prosecution rested and witness after witness got on the stand, 21 in total, and nuked the entire internet's defense of Karmelo Anthony. They said Karmelo was the aggressor. They said he was asked to leave the tent upwards of 15 times. Not once, not twice, upwards of 15. They said Karmelo was sitting there with his hand in the bag before they even approached. His hand was already in the bag on the knife. He was provoking them to do something. He was saying, nobody's going to do anything. Y'all are too pussy. And if they wanted him to leave, they were going to have to make him leave. And then he says, as long as you don't touch me, there won't be a problem. So let's not play stupid here. He had his hand in the bag on the knife, waiting for the slightest contact so he could pull it out and use it. And remember that big excuse everybody kept repeating? He was invited in. He had friends in the tent. He had a right to be there. No, that fell apart too. The guy Karmelo supposedly knew that was in the tent, his name's Eddie. Eddie was friends with Karmelo's girlfriend. They knew each other. He said that they were cool, but they weren't friends like that. So knowing somebody in the tent does not mean you were invited in. It does not mean it was your team tent, and it damn sure does not mean you get to stay after being told over and over and over again to leave. Even the defensive witnesses couldn't save him. They said Karmelo was provoking the entire situation. They said Karmelo was in the wrong. That is your own defensive side hurting you. And for the people saying it wasn't a knife, stop. You're embarrassing yourselves in my comment section and others. It was a knife. A knife was recovered. It's evidence in the case. Also, Austin Metcalf and his brother did not jump him. That lie is dead, and y'all are remedial if you still believe it. Austin even made a statement that he was not fighting him at a track meet, according to all the witnesses. And for the simple people still struggling with this, because I know there's simple-minded people in the comment section, so I'll speak slow. The shove and the stab happened simultaneously. For you basic people, that means at the same time. That means this was not Karmelo getting beat down. He wasn't in a headlock and then defending himself. This was a shove and a knife going into Austin's chest. That is not self-defense. That is cold-blooded murder. And when the jury gets this case, I don't think it'll take long. It'll take about 3 hours or less. Not because of racism, not because Austin was white, not because Karmelo's black, but because the evidence is the evidence. He did it. It wasn't justified self-defense, and even Shaq could hit this free throw. Stay mad, but facts and evidence don't give a fuck about your feelings. Drop your comments below.
The defense has rested and Karmelo Anthony will not be testifying. That was a big question going into today, and now we have our answer. And I am a little surprised, and here's why. There's no clear video of the full incident from start to finish, and while there were witnesses, a lot of witnesses, there were also inconsistencies in the testimony, right? Where people were standing, where they were sitting, who saw what, exactly how the confrontation unfolded. Like, of course we know there was a verbal confrontation. Metcalf put his hands on Anthony first, and then Anthony stabbed and killed Metcalf. That part everybody more or less agrees on, but everything in between and even some stuff after, there are competing arguments. That's why I wanted to hear from Karmelo Anthony. When the witness testimony is scattered like that or inconsistent, Karmelo stepping in and stepping up and saying, here's what I saw, here's what I felt, here's why I did what I did, can be the thing that ties it all together. In a self-defense case, his perception is everything. What did he see? What did he think was happening? Why did he believe he needed to use deadly force in that moment? Did he fear for his life? That testimony done right defense can be incredibly persuasive. His attorney can still argue all of that in closing arguments. I'm just saying it could potentially help the jury to hear directly from Karmelo Anthony. The problem is that testifying is a risk. If you watched the Rick Chow trial, you saw how aggressive that prosecutor got on cross-examination. Sometimes the safest move is to stay quiet. Rick Chow didn't testify either, but big difference, he had his son on the stand, and his son was able to get Rick Chow's version of events in front of the jury without Rick Chow ever having to say a word. Here, we don't really have that. We really have the opposite, right? We don't have that one witness who could say, yes, they were surrounding Karmelo. Yes, he was in danger. Yes, they were going to attack him. Yes, I think he was defending himself, right? Even the witnesses who testified on his behalf were careful. They didn't really go out on a limb to really help Anthony out too much, because the eyewitnesses were largely from the opposing team, because as we know, Karmelo Anthony was in the opposing team's tent. There was also a delay after lunch today. Court was supposed to resume at a certain time and it didn't. People immediately started speculating, oh, he's getting a plea deal. My theory is that they were taking time to determine whether Karmelo Anthony would testify or not. Of course, we now know that he decided not to testify, and that decision cannot be used against him. Closing arguments are scheduled for tomorrow, and after that, we will be on verdict watch. Stay tuned. I will keep you updated as always.
We have a winner! They get the prize. Finally, someone gets it. Read, and this explains everything. Now, I just did a video. It's funny because I just did a video on that. I brought in Texas law. And basically what this means, folks, is you can only use force with force. So if he pushes you, push him back. He punches you, you can punch him back. But if he pushes you, you surely can't get a knife out and stab him. Okay, you can't do that, folks. Okay? And I don't know what people aren't getting. This case is zero chance. Zero. I mean zero. If there was a negative, there'd be a negative 20. That this is self-defense. There is no self-defense at all here, folks. At all. It's made up. Read. This is Texas law. You can use force with force. Force with force. A push, a push, a punch, a punch. Even if he did push him, he could have pushed him back. He can't do what he did. Folks, I don't know where people are thinking this is self-defense. There's no self-defense. Thank you for this comment. Finally, someone's getting this. The defense has rested their case. But I don't know if that was a defense. The defense didn't even take a full day? What? Like, to me, there was no defense today. Called a couple of people, called the cop. The one witness kept saying, well, you know, I don't really remember. That was a long time ago. I don't really remember. Folks, to me, there was no defense today, okay? Now, tomorrow, we closing arguments, okay? The defense will have a closing argument, prosecution, and then the jury gets the case. And they're going to be sequestered. What sequestered means is they are not going to go home until they come up with a decision. They'll put them in a hotel if they have to, okay? So they're going to be sequestered. No going home till the decision is made. Now, this is what's going to happen tomorrow. The defense, the prosecution, closing arguments, the judge will tell the jury what they have to do, and then the jury's going to have a cup of coffee. Guilty, 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 and then they're going to come right back in. I'm going to figure the jury will be out 20 minutes and find Karmelo Anthony guilty. 20 minutes. That's my prediction. There was no defense. There was no defense.
The prosecution has rested its case in the murder trial of Karmelo Anthony, who was accused of stabbing Austin Metcalf at a high school track meet.
Let's give a full review of the testimony that the jury actually heard, as well as a review of the law in self-defense. To be clear, there will be no opinion or bias offered here, just a review of what the jury has actually seen.
So the prosecution presented 21 witnesses. Many of those witnesses were Austin's teammates who witnessed the confrontation and the stabbing. Each witness gave similar testimony that Karmelo, who was part of a different high school, was under their team's tent, which under track culture was unusual because each team sits under their tent.
Many from Austin's team tried to get Karmelo to leave the tent, with Austin taking the lead to try to get Karmelo out. Perhaps the strongest testimony for the prosecution came from one student who testified that Karmelo said, "F y'all, I'm not going to leave. Y'all a bunch of Peas, y'all are not gonna do anything. To which Austin said, bro, just leave, we don't want you here. This witness told the jury that Austin stayed calm and even told Karmelo he did not want to fight.
It was around this point that witnesses say Karmelo reached his hand inside his backpack and said things like, touch me and see what happens, and you're gonna have to move me then.
What happened next is really the crux of the self-defense claim. Witnesses testified that Austin did make physical contact with Karmelo to try and get him out of the tent, but the testimony described it as a, quote, soft shove that was not aggressive. It was at that point that witnesses say Karmelo pulled the knife out of his bag and stabbed Austin in the heart.
The prosecution also scored major wins by asking witnesses questions like, did Karmelo have any reason to stab Austin? Answer, no. And in your mind, this wasn't self-defense, but murder, to which the witness agreed. And to another witness, this was murder, wasn't it? With the answer being yes. Now, Karmelo's attorneys definitely should have objected to those questions because they improperly call for a legal conclusion.
The prosecution also called several other witnesses, like track coaches, who testified that there was a zero-tolerance policy for weapons on school grounds. And also the medical examiner who presented images and descriptions of Austin's fatal injuries, which frankly was less about the evidence and more about presenting the jury with emotional images.
Interestingly, Austin's twin brother, Hunter, who reportedly held Austin in his arms while he died, did not testify. The prosecution also reviewed several videos of the encounter, but reports say none of the videos actually showed the stabbing itself.
As for the law, the whole case here depends on Karmelo's claim that he acted in self-defense. The key here is that this was deadly defensive force. And under Texas law, deadly defensive force is only justified if Karmelo reasonably believed that deadly force was necessary to protect himself from death or serious bodily injury.
So the prosecution's argument is simple. Even if Austin did push Karmelo first, that doesn't allow for deadly force in return. Self-defense law also doesn't allow an initial aggressor to claim self-defense. And the prosecution is clearly trying to set the stage that Karmelo was looking for a confrontation by bringing a knife to attract him and refusing to leave another team's tent while making verbal threats.
All that said, we want to be clear that this is the prosecution's version of events and it's their witnesses. The defense's case is ongoing right now.
Their arguments will likely focus on Austin being the first one to make physical contact. Basically, this wouldn't have happened had Austin not put hands on Karmelo, and that there was a significant size disparity with Austin being much larger than Karmelo. And it was reasonable to feel seriously threatened by the larger Austin pushing and the other team members all ganging around him.
Ultimately, the question of self-defense is always up to a jury to decide after hearing all of the evidence.
So scared because it seems like this is already decided. And then what happens when they get guilty? You know, how is that going to be? Are we going to tear the city up or what? You know, is everything going to be calmed down? I mean, I have no idea. All I know is people are passionate about this case, as they should. It's very unfortunate, the things that happen. I mean, looking back, I just wish that we didn't have to touch each other in violence. Why do we always have to go to violence? I think that is so much violence in the world that we need to have a campaign anti-violence, because it seems like it just get more and more violence and nobody is stopping it. No campaign is stopping it. I mean, the movies, the TV shows, the games, violent, 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 violent. I mean, that's how it seems like people communicate. It's not through words of kindness, it's through violence, and that's unfortunate.